The WWE's storyline featuring Kofi Kingston's quest for the main event and Big E's recent comments have some fans wondering whether there is racism in the WWE. Join us now as Wrestlelamia tries to answer one of the most controversial questions in wrestling today. In case you haven't been watching the WWE, and you certainly wouldn't be alone as WWE's ratings are all over the place, New Day member Kofi Kingston has had a well-received singles push on SmackDown Live, with Kingston putting in an amazing performance at February's Elimination Chamber event where he came close to dethroning WWE Champion Daniel Bryan. Kofi was subsequently set to face Bryan at Fastlane, that is until Mr. McMahon yanked him out and replaced him with Kevin Owens, implying Kingston isn't a true main eventer. McMahon then told Kingston he could face Bryan at WrestleMania 35 if he won a gauntlet match last week on SmackDown Live, a match Kofi had won, until McMahon added Bryan to the match, and the new Daniel Bryan dispatched the beat-up Kingston within minutes. Thus, many wrestling fans are wondering whether this program is a case of the WWE holding back a performer based on ethnicity, or if it's just a storyline being used to set up an eventual match at Mania, with a big payoff. Further confusing the issue are comments by Kingston's New Day teammate Big E, who commented on social media,
"We've had some time to contemplate what happened Tuesday night, and obviously Kofi's performance and the aftermath and our reaction to all of that, and a little bit of time to reflect too on, I guess, kind of our careers and why we do this. You think of this business to some degree being a meritocracy, that if you work hard, you show up early, you stay late, you do all the right things, you jump through all the right hoops, you're respectful, you don't break the law, that you get good at your craft, that you really hone that you find a place with fans, you separate yourself, you find a niche, you separate yourself from a character perspective, from an in-ring perspective, you do everything, you check all the boxes, you show up in shape, you do everything that's asked of you in this business, that if you do all those things, you have a good chance of making it to the top. But now we understand the game. We see what the game is, that people like us will only get so far, that you can climb the mountain. They'll let you climb the mountain, but as far as getting to the peak and staying at the peak, it's not a thing. That people like us, historically and moving forward clearly, can only get so far.
WWE superstars have been accused of making racist remarks, and in some cases, they've even been caught making racist remarks. But does this reflect the WWE's corporate policy? When the incident involving Hulk Hogan came to light, the WWE fired him immediately. This apparent zero-tolerance policy suggests a strong stance against racism. But what of things behind the scenes at Titan Tower? Claims have been made that the WWE's management is racist. Consider the remarks of former WWE superstar Gail Kim, who commented on Hulk Hogan's reinstatement. Plus, they're racist anyway. They don't care if anyone is racist because they have the same thoughts. Kim would issue a clarification stating, "I think due to the fact that sometimes terms like racism are thrown around easily, especially in today's climate, racism is a serious thing, and I realized that saying they, that I was putting a blanket over everyone who works in the company. This is not true. The culture or environment of a company starts from the top. The leadership of a company sends a message to its employees of what is tolerated and what is not. As an ethnic female in wrestling, there will be people reading my words, and I want to set an example. I did experience racism. I think it's important to educate, listen, and talk about these issues. I want to be very clear on where I stand. I want racial and gender equality. I hope that we can make strides to talk about and create change for the good of our industry and others." As we'll show later, Kim's concerns about WWE management seem to have merit. Wrestling itself has a history of insensitive promoting tactics that relied on exploiting stereotypes. Professional wrestling, like other forms of American entertainment, was not afraid to rely on stereotypes, whether it was African American wrestlers being depicted as having naturally hard heads, they're playing hustlers and pimps such as Crime Time and The Godfather, sneaky Asian wrestlers who spoke broken English, or Latino wrestlers with exaggerated accents who portray thugs and or have fiery tempers. Stereotypes have not been limited to persons of color, as seen with characters including dumb hillbillies, evil Russians, and money-hungry femme fatales. Fans can look back to undeniably racially insensitive and racist angles, such as the one-man gang embracing his non-existent African heritage by becoming Akeem the African Dream, Rowdy Roddy Piper painting himself half black before wrestling American wrestler Bad News Brown for the WrestleMania 6 bout, and endless ethnic stereotypes such as the aforementioned Crime Time, the Mexicals, and Los Matadors. Consider Triple H, who now works behind the scenes in WWE, cut the following promo on Booker T when the 5-time WCW champion challenged him for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 19. I think you're a little bit confused about your role in life here. You're going to get to go to WrestleMania. But the fact is, Booker, somebody like you doesn't get to be a world champion. People like you don't deserve it. That's reserved for people like me. That's where the confusion is. You're not here to be a competitor. You're here to be an entertainer. That's what you do. You entertain people. Hell, you entertain me all the time. Go ahead, do a little dance for me. Go ahead, give me one of those spinneroonies. Entertain me. That's your job. Don't be embarrassed. You're here to make people like me laugh. With your nappy hair and your suckers. Hell, I was laughing all week long after you won that battle royal. The interview was troubling, but all the more troubling when Helmsley pinned Booker T cleanly at Mania, with Booker T getting no payback for Helmsley's remarks. However, some wrestlers who have portrayed roles seen by others as demeaning have defended their roles. For example, Crime Time's JTG wrote in 2018, "No, I don't feel Crime Time's image and persona was racist, absolutely not. Shad and I were a tag team down in Ohio Valley Wrestling in Louisville, Kentucky. It was actually us who came up with the characters and our look, as it was an extension of our personalities with the volume turned all the way up. We were authentic, and that's the reason why we were so over with the crowd. Shad and I are both from Brooklyn, New York. We were born and raised there. We both grew up in low-income, single-parent households and had similar experiences being raised in the hood. Even though I didn't meet Shad until I was 18 years old, we made a great team as soon as we paired because of the chemistry we had outside of the ring. Shad and I shot a few comedic training videos down in OVW, exactly like the ones they showed prior to our debut for Raw. I was told that the first time WWE Chairman Vince McMahon saw Shad and me together, we made him laugh. He asked if I was already under contract and I wasn't. Vince then wanted to hire me on the spot. The man never even saw me wrestle. But the fact is that racism in wrestling is more than just hearsay. As detailed in our 2-part Behind the Titantron episode, the Wcw Racism Lawsuit, the WWE's now defunct rival World Championship Wrestling was sued by a number of individuals who claimed unequal treatment by WCW, including a pay disparity between white and non-white wrestlers, fewer merchandising opportunities for minority wrestlers, and constant negative portrayal of minority wrestlers in storylines. There were also allegations of a racial discrimination backstage and a hostile workplace environment for minority employees, but the lawsuit was eventually settled out of court. The case didn't involve the WWE, but it raises the questions, are there similar situations in WWE today? If so, the WWE faces potentially devastating lawsuit both in terms of damages and the company's public image. As often happens with issues involving racial discrimination, there is no smoking gun piece of evidence to prove those in power at WWE are racist, or that racism affects their promotion and other treatment of wrestlers from minority groups. Let's review the WWE's history and allegations of racial discrimination backstage and/or a hostile work environment. Number 1. A lack of African American world champions. Some analysts point to the WWE Championship and its World Heavyweight Championship, noting the lack of champions from the minority backgrounds, particularly black wrestlers. Mark Henry, The Rock, and Booker T are the only black wrestlers to have held either belt. The problem hasn't gone unnoticed. For example, Forbes writer Alfred Konua recently penned a column, The 5 Most Embarrassing Facts About WWE and Its Handling of Black Superstars, discussing how an African American wrestler hasn't main evented WrestleMania since Lawrence Taylor at WrestleMania 11, although Konua is splitting hairs with The Rock, who is both African American and Samoan. Also that no black wrestler has ever won a Money in the Bank ladder match, and other alarming facts. Number 2. The Michael Hayes-Mark Henry incident. Evidence of a hostile work environment can lead to legal repercussions. Consider the case of Michael Hayes, who reportedly used the N-word to Mark Henry. In 2008, Pro Wrestling Net reported, Hayes and MVP had been using the word while joking around together earlier in the night. It was a party setting and Hayes had been drinking when he approached Henry. A pair of sources confirmed that Hayes told Henry, "I'm more of an N-word than you are." One of the sources claims that it was a play on something MVP jokingly said about Hayes earlier in the night because of the white suit that he wore to the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony. Hayes then headbutted Henry in what one source described as a playful manner. Henry and Hayes exchanged words, and the former reported the issue to WWE officials. Hayes was suspended for 60 days without pay after Henry filed a complaint. Hayes still currently works behind the scenes for WWE. In 2008, Booker T discussed the incident during a conference call for TNA Wrestling. "I don't look at Michael as racist myself. I've heard him use the N-word before. He's one of the people who can use the word around me because I know there's no malice behind it." If Hayes has changed his ways, the WWE can point out that they gave him a second chance, but if things turn out differently, the WWE could face legal sanctions should one or more wrestlers prove discrimination and/or a hostile work environment. And number 3, the WWE chairman himself. Is he out of touch or racist? Wrestling fans often point to 73-year-old McMahon as being out of touch when it comes to the wrestling product. Is he also out of touch with societal norms when it comes to ethnicity and gender? In a 2015 podcast, Jim Ross recalled his discussion with McMahon about bringing in Gail Kim into the WWE. "I remember Vince saying, 'You want to hire this Asian girl, right?' I don't know. I just don't know." And I said, "Well Vince, you know there's a lot of guys that like Asian women. There's Asian porn sites." Ross recalls Vince was surprised at the revelation. After Ross's podcast, Gail Kim tweeted, "Nothing I'm really surprised at concerning Vince McMahon. Yes, it's in poor taste, but it's his character." Fans can only look at these and other allegations before deciding how to view the WWE's past. But is it too early to tell if the Kofi Kingston storyline represents a racist policy? Although the WWE has a questionable history in terms of racism, the current storyline involving Kofi Kingston seems to be the case of the WWE playing up an underdog story while incorporating elements of individuals dealing with racial discrimination. Given the WWE's history, the company is treading on dangerous ground and would be wise in how they frame Kofi's narrative. The WWE's track record with handling sensitive issues such as discrimination speaks for itself, whether it's Booker T's quest to defeat Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship, or their treatment of wrestler Muhammad Hassan, whose original gimmick was that of an Arab American angered by negative depictions of all Arab Americans as villains, but who quickly degenerated into a stereotypical villain himself. But there you have it guys, an in-depth look at the WWE's corporate culture and policy. Do you think that the company is racist? Well, let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.